Hi, ladies of the Soulful Goddess, Leah Vanderlinden here, and I am so excited to welcome the beautiful Brenna tonight. Brenna and I have instantly connected as we share so many things in common. We both are honored to be Reiki masters. We both believe in shadow work and practice shadow work personally and on our clients. Hi, ladies. We believe in the inner child and the importance of using the inner child and learning the inner child in everything that we do. So having us both here tonight is just such an exciting treat. So you are going to just want to sit back, grab that pen and paper, and write a lot of notes because we are going to be just boom, 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 spitting fire at you. So we're going to teach chakras a little different. Teach chakras centered around the shadow and the polarities of finding out about those chakras. Ah, yes, there she is. Hi,
Sorry,
Lisa.
I was like having technical difficulty,
That's
so
okay. I just need to
yeah.
refresh and fluff my hair anyway.
Good.
I'm so excited you're here.
Yeah,
So I went
thank
ahead and
you.
introduced you. If at any point you guys
Cool.
have
Thank you.
any problems hearing us, or there's an echo or anything like that, please just let us know below, and we'll make sure we
Yeah.
fix it. When we're first appearing, it seems like our faces are scrunched, how you and I are looking, but you'll see when you look back, we look we look
Sounds
cinema
great.
way.
Sounds
Okay.
great.
Hi, ladies. Okay.
Mhm.
So what I was telling them is that one of the cool things to learn about chakras too is what those words actually mean, like the throat chakra.
Mhm.
And when I first started learning about it, I was like, what? It means purity? But that goes hand in hand of why it would mean purity. And we'll dive into that later too. So I'm going to put you on the spot because you're so damn good with your words. So can
Thank
you
you.
explain to somebody who's just now diving in and learning about chakras, right? And we'll dive in a little bit later why it's so important that we be connected to our chakras. But can you explain very simply what does a chakra mean?
So the word chakra is Sanskrit for spinning wheel of energy. So yes, exactly, spinning wheel. So in a very, very basic form, um, our chakra centers are energy centers that allow different emotions and thoughts and basically all of that metaphysical goodness to flow through us. So those centers represent different gates or key aspects that unlock those energies of us to flow. So that is kind of the most basic form. It's an energy center, and they, do I go into location? They kind of lie on our spine. You'll see a lot of illustrations that will show in the front. So the most basic is just an energy center or a gatekeeper of different energies that we put
I
out.
love that. And what do chakras affect?
So chakras affect, I mean, each chakra, that's a loaded question.
You know I know.
But on a most basic form too, again, is that chakras affect the energy level that can output physical, how we act, how we think, how we feel, how we see, what we do. Each chakra represents that. The one we are focusing on tonight is our throat chakra, and that one is um, speaking and the way that we output our energy into self expression in various
I love
forms.
it. And is there any way to scientifically prove that chakras exist?
To scientifically prove, mm, well, I think for me too, I think of scientifically as just our auras, which can be a whole other rabbit hole. But if you've heard of it, which is also not scientific, but um, pseudoscience, of course. But our auras are kind of the energy from our chakras that we output. So different colors that we relate to are the basis of our chakras. So scientifically, it could be. I'm trying to think of like a basis off the top here. Like if you're feeling really angry, per se, people will feel just a lot of bitterness and everything. We would resonate that to the root chakra, which is red, which is angry, and you can kind of tap into that science of, well, why are you angry, and peel back a layer until you get to the root of it, which is the root chakra. So kind of my
Yeah.
scientific look at it. Medical, I guess. Medical is my terminology.
It's a
So.
hard one to kind of to explain, but you did a great job. And
Mm-hmm.
then now let's kind of dive into, I know we were talking about earlier how we both like different words as far as there's been a new hype lately that a lot of people coming into energy work reference block. They say blocked chakra, right? And so Brenna and
Mm-hmm.
Leah kind of like to spice it up a little and change wording to where it feels a little better to the ears, right? So I like the terminology of being clogged, or Brenna was saying cluttered, right? So we're going to dive into just a moment. I'm going to read Victoria's comment, but we're going to talk about how do you know if yours is clogged? And what's like the Drano that you can use to unclog that, right? So we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, but my favorite part is going to be when we also talk about the shadows, because I think the word shadow gets such a bad rap. But remember, at one point, there was a polarity that as a child, most of us loved our shadows. Half the time we named it, we wanted to play with it, we were sad when we couldn't see it. And so that's what a lot of we're going to talk about tonight is bringing that childlike energy back to healing those shadows and to diving into understanding your throat. So, and understanding that it's so much more than just your literal throat. We want to talk about that too. So Victoria said, yes, energy centers have been scientifically proven. They can be measured also, which is so exciting that our woo-woo can be backed up by science. Yeah. Go BW. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how can a chakra become clogged? And I'll let you dive in and
Okay,
we'll
come on.
piggyback.
Okay, so how a chakra can be clogged. In regards to the throat chakra can be clogged when the most basic form when you're being
Yeah.
dishonest.
Yeah.
Being dishonest though, in not just like communication, but in your thought
Mm-hmm.
process too. I do a lot of shadow work and it all plays into our thoughts. It's everything is thought
Mm-hmm.
process. And it's when you are like, literally being dishonest. Like, I can give a personal example. I was trying to do some energy or, some shadow work of my throat chakra. And I was, even in the most basic form, I couldn't decide what song I wanted to listen to on my playlist. I chose another song when I was really feeling a different one. And therefore I clogged that. That form of self-expression that I denied myself. All of a sudden my jaw was tense
Mm.
and I was getting a headache and just I don't know, I just wasn't feeling good and I couldn't quite place what it was until later on when that song came on when I hit shuffled. I'm like, oh, yeah, I could dance it out. And so it can be clogged or cluttered. And I really also don't like using the word blockage or a block because that is too negative. And I feel like when we are blocked, that means that there's no way that we can move around or have the obstacle. So I also like using the word cluttered to breed
Yes, I like to
um,
read.
just small ways. Yeah, exactly. Just because, uh, yeah, we always have movement. Energy is always
Yeah,
flowing.
because when you think of
Um,
a blocked drain, that's a drain that nothing can get
mhm,
through at all. But when you think of a clogged drain, there's still a
mhm,
little bit that gets through of the water and it goes down a little bit and you can still get a little through, right? It just can't go through all the way.
yeah,
But when it's completely blocked,
exactly.
it can't go through at all. And that's when, Brenna and I would be more concerned, in my opinion, if you are completely blocked, especially in your throat, that's going to be more like very severe lung cancer,
Mhm,
tumors,
mhm,
because the
yeah,
emotional and the physical and the spiritual are all blocked. So because of that, your body is
mhm,
saying, I really can't go on until you feed this need. So it physically shuts down in many ways. But if you have debris on a road, you can still continue to drive on the road, but you have to find ways to work around it. And that's a lot of the chakra work
Mm-hmm.
is working around the debris to where that shadow now becomes light, or you see that the shadow was light all along.
Yeah, and you kind of work to pick up that debris all on
Yeah,
your own. And
it's your
so
law
that's a
proof.
lot of what energy work is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
want to talk about that. We'll just dive into that since you said that. So one of the notes that I wrote that's funny because we didn't discuss this part was
I'm not surprised.
was one of the ways that a shadow appears most definitely is people that tend to not tell the truth. When you hear the word throat chakra, a lot of us go holding your truth back and you think, oh, that means I never stick up for myself. But there's also moments of truth that you lie without realizing it. Little white lies for the comfort of other people, or lying to yourself that things are not
Mm,
a big deal when they really are. And those little lies become big lies in the end. But the beauty of a shadow is there is always a polarity. And the polarity of lying would be truth.
truth.
So when your
Yes.
throat chakra is healthy, truth comes very easy to you. It's not something that you're
Mm,
afraid to voice because it has this little home that has created all this safetyness around it, right? It's not scared to leave the home. So there's a
right.
beauty in finding the polarity of finding your truth. So one way that I was going to say that to do shadow work around that is to kind of zoom out, right? And ask yourself, like, what area in your life are you not telling the truth in? Is it that you're really unhappy driving to work every day, but you fake it every day? That's a lie, So it
Yeah, yeah.
no go girl.
That quote comes to mind of fake it till you
Hmm.
make it is probably the biggest debris, in my personal opinion, in my personal life and line of work. Um, because sometimes it's easier and more truthful to say, no, I don't want to do this and this is not
Hmm.
okay.
And
So,
when I think
yeah.
of fake it till you make it, because in some areas of my life, I have to fake it till I make it when it's like in the moments where depression swallows me whole, right? There are moments where parts of me have to fake it till I make it at an event. I'm not going to walk into the event and be sobbing in a hot mess, but I can shift my mind to go to that area for an hour, right? Kind of wear that mask for an hour, but then go back to that polarity and find why I felt the need to have to wear the mask, right? So as long as you fake it till you make it for just a short period of time, but to get back to the goal of where you're trying to go, and don't that become the mask that becomes permanent, where it's you fake it till you make it, but you do no work behind it. Kind of like an affirmation. You
Mm-hmm.
could say all day, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sexy
Yeah.
like Beyonce. But if you then cut yourself
Yeah.
down because your thighs rub together and everything else, then the affirmation is not true at all.
Mm-hmm.
And your brain's like, well, that was a great affirmation, but you've been told us for 4 hours otherwise, right? So as long as you're not faking it till
Mm-hmm.
you're making it and then refusing to do the work. But another thing I was going to say to ask yourself is the same thing to the truth is, like we said a little bit ago, is not embracing who you are, not embracing what you really
Mm-hmm.
want to do or where you want to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, like you said, even driving to work or doing the
Mhm.
job, or it's it's that modality of everything with
Mhm.
self-expression. It's it's kind, I mean, and it's something to tie it back into inner child work. It's those seeds that were planted in childhood by other people or by yourself because you want to appease, which, I mean, loving other people and people pleasing is a form of self expression, absolutely. But there are ties to that that can also really have that debris stuck in there for a really long
Yes.
time. And then it will start to manifest that. And so, even, I'm going to dive in just for a
Dive,
second if you
honey.
don't
I got my
mind
scuba
that
gear.
child work.
Dive, girl.
Uh, Um, but I was thinking, like on this inner child work and um I mean, and we've heard all the time too, just like how, like I was saying with the child work, but parents who tell their kids, maybe you're too loud or you're too much or you're
Children are
too
meant to be
anything.
seen, not
And they
heard.
say, hey, yes. And even such subtle, subtle little things that maybe we don't even catch until we're older, until maybe we're parents or we're dealing with children and we see them in the same circumstance of just that little tiny critique, just that tiny little no that's just twisted. And you cut it off because you don't want to be attached to that. You want to people please and you
Validation.
want to still be exactly, you want to be validated. And therefore, self expression, there is that debris that is being built up. And so that is a huge, huge shadow
Mhm.
piece, shadow
It is
child
so,
piece.
because one of the number one things that I struggle with, and so many of my clients, is that same exact thing. Their truth becomes wrapped up in the validation. So everything they speak
Hmm.
then no longer is their truth because it's not an authenticity, which to me, goes hand in hand with being truthful. If you're lying, you're not being authentic to what you really want. You're creating a lie most of the time to please other people or for a temporary validation.
Hmm.
So if everything you do and say that comes out of your mouth is for a validation, then that now becomes your truth. So every time you go to speak, it's like, oh, will Sally still accept me? Will Sarah still think I'm pretty if I wear? So it's not even your authenticity anymore. It's those people.
A debris
Yes,
speaking.
girl. So what I want to dive into a little bit too, now that I have my scuba gear on with you, is when we talk about the shadow, this is what's cool, you guys. The learning comes from learning what is the benefit that the shadow gives me. Because there is a benefit that you get from lying. Think about it. When you lie, you get to pretend that another truth is truth.
Can you explain what a shadow is in the
I
most
want you
basic
to
form?
explain what it is.
I want you to explain.
Be my guest.
A shadow, a shadow is maybe what could be deemed by self or others what is a negative quality, negative outlook, negative perspective, shadow,
Yes.
and more.
And to
But yeah,
me,
basic.
a shadow is when you, it's also when you only see things from one viewpoint, one emotion, one reaction, one response, and you refuse to ever see the other side of it, right? Because there's fear of seeing the other side. But the shadow is literally just the polarity of it. It's like people make it so complex. Like it's night and day. It's
Hmm.
simple as that. It's
Absolutely.
it's the polarity. But what I was gonna say is that when you get when you tell the lie, and you tell the lie to yourself or you tell the lie to someone else, and then for a moment, because you embellish your story a little bit more, there was a reward, right? Everybody wanted to listen to you, and you were like the cool one at the table. There was a little reward when you lied and told yourself, oh, tomorrow I'll get to that, but tonight I'm going to watch Netflix and eat cheese dip. There's a reward. So when you're really doing
Hmm.
shadow work, it's finding what reward am I getting by picking this emotion or picking this response, right? So then you can ask yourself the opposite of that. What reward would I be getting if I was actually authentic?
That's amazing. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, what would that reward be with throat chakra? So the energy of that self-expression, what would
Mhm.
that be? There's a lot less stress when there's
Thank
authenticity
you. Not having to
and the
remember
journey
what
to,
lie you
yeah,
told.
yeah, a lot less stress. And or I mean just
Or care what people think.
I mean even yeah, I can't, like for me, okay, I'm a queer woman, a queer witch woman in the medical world, and I never really hid from those. I just kind of was what I was. And yeah, I live in a very conservative state. And back in the day when it was a little bit more taboo, um, there were looks that would get, but like just to live in authenticity, just living in that space that you can't really see. I'm grabbing my throat chakra. When I'm really passionate, I'm right here.
Speaking your
um,
truth.
um, when you magnify your authenticity, there's nothing that can be denied. And when nothing can be denied, your personal power
Amen.
shines. It's just
Mhm.
there. Yeah.
Amen.
Hmm.
I love that. I love that. And that's brave of you to say that. Yeah. And then there's just something freeing and being able to ask yourself. I think that was my biggest awakening with my throat chakra was for many years I constantly said yes when I wanted to say no. And I'll never forget the call. I'll never forget the day I was in Brookside. And this one of my dear friends called me and wanted me to go to something I did not want to go to. And I think for the first time in that 17 years of our friendship, I was like, no, I think I'm just going to shop around Brookside today. But thanks for inviting me. I didn't make any excuses as I normally did and try to find a way to make the blow softer. And I just spoke in that. And it was so nice to not have to keep up with anything or to apologize for just not wanting to do it. And she never once asked me to explain why I didn't want to do it. I don't know why we feel the need when we say no or disagree to have to
Hmm.
overcompensate with making them feel better. When in reality, I think they're like, just say no. But back to that
Hmm.
validation.
Yeah.
But that,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
no, you go.
No,
But that's
go ahead. You're good.
you
You're
go,
good.
you go. Just really asking yourself, what am I saying yes to really? Because if you say yes, there's a polarity to that too. What are you saying no to? So it's asking yourself
Hmm.
in those questions and always finding the polarity. Um, and then I was going to say, if you know somebody that's a chronic liar, like a pathological liar, that's someone, they don't have a block, but they're literally just living out of their throat chakra. Like if you probably did an
Hmm.
aura scan on them, you're just gonna see nothing but because every aspect of their
It's
life
blue.
is just affected by this. It rules everything.
Hmm. Well, it's like I said, like we were mentioning, is that your throat chakra, when it's overactive like that, maybe some signs that are saying that's overactive is, I notice clients that I work with is they are almost a little too boastful, almost a little
Arrogant.
too physically
Mhm.
vocal, very, very vocal about
Yes.
everything. Maybe they're having a hard time finding the balance of where their opinions or company matter, or um, I mean, it's not wrong to be not reserved. I'm not going down that path. But there's a sense of
Mhm.
egotistical that kind of comes from
Yes.
it. That is really stemmed from that
Yeah.
overabundance and that energy. We need to bring it back down
Yeah.
just a little bit.
And a lot of times
So, hmm.
there is a fear of silence for them. And so they have to constantly create a conversation even when it's not needed because it creates a temporary
Hmm.
comfort.
And I
No, go for it.
That's been something that I see on I love. I did an Akashic Records reading, and I'm a throat chakra being, like hands down. And generational trauma, which could be a whole other fun class we could do. But the women in the family were very silenced in grief, and I come along, the little Sagittarius bundle of fire that I am to my parents, and they literally, I think finally this year, they finally said, "You're just not afraid to shock people." And I'm like, mm-mm, no. but there's no mask. There's nothing. I mean, if you follow me online, like I'm very transparent with everything. Like, but it's finding the dark and the light and that polarity of what that
Mhm.
means to not be silenced and to just be and to be authentic and to not be underactive in my throat chakra too. I just love it. It's the best
Yeah,
chakra.
it's
I'll
amazing.
tell
It's
you.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, and Taylor said, I love that. Language is so important. Yeah, and it is really important to be able to speak your truth like that, like she's saying, because there comes this authenticity of going, you know what, this is who I am. Because when you do that, you give people a chance to love you, not love what you think that they're going to accept or love what you think they want to hear. They actually get to love you. But until you actually begin to speak your truth and be authentic, they're only going to love the parts of you that you're exposing that are you. And that's the hard part of stripping
Absolutely.
all that and going, what mask am I wearing to please everybody else? And what's really me? Because once again,
Mm.
it's all about truth. So, one thing I was also going to suggest, and we'll move on from the word liar for a moment, but is if that is something that you find that as a kid, since a kid, you love telling stories and you tend to kind of go overboard, well, guess what? You grab a journal and tell a story in your journal, right? And make it a creative story where you go crazy and go all out, or use your voice recorder and do that where you change the roles and you make these elaborate characters, but tell a story in a way like that, but not a story that's going to affect your reality by living a lie. Their voice and not being able to speak up for themselves.
So, sorry, mine glitched out. Can you say that last part again? I don't know why I'm
Yeah,
doing it.
so Lotus said, what about a child that's went through trauma and she lost her voice as a child?
Mm, yes, that is definitely a beautiful shadow that comes through. So, losing her voice, really lost her sense of beliefs and everything in herself. Is that kind of where we're going with that? Kind of? Yeah, you're
Yeah, or
nodding.
I
Is
would
that?
think her voice was probably silenced. She wasn't probably allowed to
Yeah.
speak her opinion. Yeah.
So, what about a child when that happens? When she's older, that would lead to maybe something we'd view in an underactive throat chakra. That damage that was done maybe in childhood, being silenced by trauma is the worst. Absolutely. I've also personally been there. And yeah, that's really hard. That's a really hard place to be. It's a hard place to admit. It's a hard place to peel back a layer or 10 and that underactive throat chakra you'll see when they're silenced is low self esteem. A lot you'll see that's kind of correlated to that. Or someone who not necessarily is a liar or doesn't have a mask, but they have a really fearful sense of self. They maybe fear the power that
Mhm.
they have. Trauma creates heroes, it just does. And maybe they have, I like that. What did I just say? Trauma creates
Uh-huh.
heroes?
You did. I know. I was like, I'm
Okay.
gonna meme that.
And so having that brings you back to kind of a ground zero. So maybe I'm seeing that this is that energy in that
Mhm.
throat. Not that there's debris, but um there's a lot of contraction that's happening. That energy wants to flow and it's going so hard. Sorry, my voice is going out too. I'm going over a cold. So that is what I would say for a kid who has had experienced trauma and was silenced and moving through that. If this was somebody I knew who is a kid, I would definitely want to have them express and talk about it. Have them kind of move through that so they can feel their physical voice and their
Yeah.
vibration, um, sharing how their
Yeah. And I
emotions.
would say as
So.
an adult, that would show up that behavior or characteristic if you were a child that wasn't allowed to have a voice. It would be you probably attract people that have a voice. And oftentimes
Mm-hmm.
you kind of just go with the flow of what other people are saying because there's a fear if you were to go with your own, or There is a fear of sticking up for yourself. That might come up often, or putting yourself in situations where you wouldn't have to have that voice. Being comfortable with letting other people be the leader, because there is this fear if you were to actually take charge and speak of what would happen, because at one time something happened when you did. So what happens is when you keep giving life to that, you give life to whatever age that was. So let's say you were 8 years old. And so from this point on, now you're 48. So you have 40 years of truth just sitting here. Just sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to come out where there's going to be other emotions affected by that. You might cry when people say things, or, find yourself just getting offensive or shutting down and getting close to people because it's affecting everything. So what I would say is, as an inner child, you're going to think of a characteristic of whatever age it is that happened to you. If it's an 8-year-old, chances are you're going to respond. I'm not being rude, I'm just being honest. You're probably going to respond like an 8-year-old in those situations, because you are still very much operating your throat as an 8-year-old. There are things with me in a relationship, even with a man, with a man even years into doing shadow work, but still act like I'm 10. So when I see that, I go, holy shit. Well, the reason I'm throwing a temper tantrum is because my inner child still has parts of me that I haven't honored at 10. And it's coming out by this male who is, the age of the person that may have said those things to me at 10. So, God, I can talk about that all night, me and inner child work. But it's going to come out, and it's going to come out where you feel like, why don't I have a better response to this? And that's because in those moments, your inner child is responding, and you need to really love on her and embrace her and let her speak her truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know we're going
Absolutely.
long, so let's keep going. So another way that emotionally that may pop up as far as shadows would be if you are living with no purpose, where it feels like you're not living with any purpose or any direction. Would you agree to that?
Absolutely. 100%. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of times with that, it's going back to that wearing a mask, feeling like you almost have to be fake sometimes, or the not being able to live in the authenticity. Um, and so if you think about that when you're not living in the present, right? Because I want to pick your brain for this. What would what would the gift be that somebody would be receiving temporarily if they didn't live in the presence?
What would the gift
Yeah.
be if they weren't
Because there's a
living?
little payoff they're getting.
Hmm. There's a little what?
Payoff.
Sorry. I don't know off the top of my head. I have to. That's a loaded question for
Yeah.
me to know that.
When you don't
What would a
live
gift
in the
be?
present, it's like you get to give yourself permission to be distracted. And there
Mm-hmm.
is comfort in distractions. There is, temporarily. So, I
Yeah,
mean, think about it. If
there
every
is.
time that you break a promise to yourself, you reward yourself with cheesecake, mentally,
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
There is
Mm-hmm.
a payoff. So then what would be the payoff to the polarity of that? If you actually did get clear on letting yourself go, okay, I did come here for a reason, but it's okay that I don't know my purpose, because my purpose in life is supposed to change. I don't know about you, but I think the biggest thing that causes stress for me is thinking that everything always has to go one way. But my
Mm-hmm.
purpose
Yeah.
constantly changes in my mind. You know, hello, look at both of us. One time our purpose was, we're going to do some Reiki. We're going to do some Reiki. So
Yeah.
we go all into doing Reiki.
But then we also realize, wow, we also want to incorporate inner child work, then shadow work, then chakras, and all kinds of things. So we go all different paths that still lead to one path. But I think that, like Jody just said, staying in the comfort zone of the known past avoids risk of the unsure future, right?
Kind of reminds me of a quote that I love is chaos is creativity seeking
Oh,
form.
say it again.
And sorry. Chaos is creativity
Yeah.
seeking form. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when you get in those moments where you're really depressed and you find yourself operating in the sphere of, I have no direction, I don't know my purpose. I just want to know my gifts. Why can't I know? Understand that those things, the more that you actually give truth and give time for that authenticity to come out of you, pour out of you, speak out of you, your purpose will come. But your path should, in my opinion, should always shift. It's not always going to be clear. It's not always going to be straight. But think about it when you drive and you go on a road trip, the beauty oftentimes is the sightseeing or
Hmm.
stopping a pop,
Yeah, yeah, the reward is always found within the
Yeah,
journey. Always. It's never at the end. It is within.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
when you're doing shadow
Yeah.
work, it's giving yourself permission to learn, why am I choosing this emotion over the other? And then finding what is the reward that I'm getting, because the true hardest part of shadow work is breaking the thought belief and the pattern that there's always going to be a reward. Now you just got to tell yourself, hey baby, that was never a reward. Now I'm going to show you what a real reward is. Right? Jody said, look at me calling myself out on my own bullshit. Honey, honey, do we understand? Another thing
Yeah.
of a chakra that might have some debris is if you feel, and it's weird how these are all kind of they all kind of go together. But if you feel that you're not living an authentic life and you're living someone else's life, or you're feeling like you have to be fake.
Yeah. Or just trying to time when you appreciate someone and the work that they do and you want to emulate those qualities, but you're adopting it because you don't want to really face yourself and how you might
Mhm.
be. That's yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
that. That to me is that gateway into sorry, screwing my camera there. That is that gateway into leading into the upper chakras, into your thought perception with your third
Yes.
eye. Of just yeah.
Amen. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing I was going to say to that, I heard this quote and it was so good. It said, fake is the avoidance of polarities.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Okay. And we're going to wrap this part up and then we're going to dive into some more juicy stuff. So, another one that I would say, emotional wise, and I think we kind of talked about it earlier, it's the ability to, where you're just stuck in this inexpressive state, right? And then we talked about, instead of being inexpressive, the over talkative. But I think when you get in that place when you are just out of fear, you're afraid to express yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you get afraid to express yourself. Like and fear, I mean that fear that comes with that, the fear of being yourself, or even I think sometimes the fear of, I mean, you can go so deep with this, but it's not just the fear of, being who you want to be. It's a fear of liking the things that
Yeah.
you like. Or I feel like I should talk to that.
Or
Yeah,
stepping out of those friendships or
anything,
relationships or, yeah.
yeah, hobbies, any hobbies you have, any books you like. I mean, at the most basic core level of getting to know just who you are as a human being and as a soul,
Exactly.
as a sentient being.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's getting over that fear that, yeah, you are awesome and your magic is your own. You are your own
Mhm.
being. So,
Yes.
man.
And another thing I want to talk about is, we talked about that the throat chakra is the gateway. So can you dive in a little bit about how it's the gateway?
Yeah. So and Leah feels the same way I do about this, but with our energy centers, we have 7 basic main chakras. We have many, many chakras, but the 7 main ones. We have our lower chakras and our upper chakras. And the lower chakras below our throat is all emotional. It's all tied into all emotion, all of it. Our upper chakras are our basic of our higher self. It's our, that spiritual gateway we have. So that throat chakra mm, is allowing our emotions to allow our higher self to be and to connect. Our throat chakra is that gateway, that gatekeeper. I think I said the gatekeeper of our higher selves. Yeah.
And it's crazy because if you think about it, you think about your body right now. Think of everything that your throat does for you. So most of us, even though we should breathe through our nose, most of us breathe through our mouths. If you ever saw me sleep, you'd be like, dang, girl. But because my mouth's wide open. But we do. Most of us breathe through our mouth, right? We chew, we swallow, we speak, we communicate. So much happens through the throat because the mouth is also connected to the throat. But your throat also has a back to it, which will be your neck. So many of us women, when we are living out of a place of we're not speaking our truth, we hold all this tension in our neck, in our shoulders. I'm so guilty. In our shoulders, even a little in here. That's all the throat. Mm-hmm. So if your throat, your gateway, your energy center has debris all along the way, then everything that's coming to you from up here, right, is not even allowed to go down here because all this stuff's in the way. But then all this physical and emotional stuff you're trying to manifest down here, it can't really get up to here either because there's so much debris. So in many ways, even though it's so powerful for up here, it really can affect down here too. And I know we both believe this too. Chakras rarely ever hang out alone. They tend to grab another one and get a buddy. So if you've got one affected, most of the time the debris is causing another one to have debris in it too. Because most of the time it's a big ass piece of debris. So that one in the throat might even go down to the heart. Right?
It could go all the way to the root.
Go to the root.
Let's be real.
It could go to the root. So yeah, so that's a big one. And so there's so much that's affected by your throat. So another thing that we wanted to talk about is the spiritual and intellectual connection that you get by honoring your throat chakra and speaking your truth.
Yes. So with our emotional and spiritual, intellectual and spiritual. When you and also to what you were speaking of, like everything you input to your throat chakra is also everything that you are ingesting, whether that is intellectually or spiritually or physically or mentally. To me, that connection to that, what you were ingesting here, what you were seeing, what you were saying, what you were speaking, what you were doing, is also a huge, huge collaboration with your throat chakra of learning what your authentic truth is. Maybe a certain thing in regards to spirituality, for instance, your spiritualism, maybe something you loved or you were resonating with a lot in your childhood, maybe isn't resonating anymore. And maybe you are releasing and letting go of that, and you are forming your own opinion. You're getting your own intellect. I'm stuck on that. Your own intellectual design on what spirituality is for you, that is playing into your throat chakra. And that is allowing that to flow back in. So when you are allowing all of that to go, it yeah, just one infinity, really, it just is. And when you have that spirituality connection through your throat chakra in that aspect of, again, what your truth is, um, that kind of, sorry, the
My
door was
son just
open.
opened the door too.
That was weird. Yeah, so that's my take on that.
And that's a beautiful explanation. I love the way you make things just so easy to understand. So if we're going to talk, we're going to dive in and
Thank
we're
you.
going to start wrapping this up, but we're going to dive into a little bit more about physical ways it may appear, because we talked about the emotional blocks, right? But physically, if you have thyroid issues, even down to hearing
Absolutely.
issues. So if you struggle, and a lot of people have the ringing of the ears, right? Um, yeah.
Absolutely.
So those are a sign of debris in your chakra.
Hmm.
What's some other signs of a cluttered fifth chakra, of a cluttered throat chakra?
Cluttered throat chakra, any physical illness, really,
Losing your
respiratory,
voice.
losing your voice. I have a cold, and yeah, I when my cold was coming on, and my partner Lucy was doing Reiki on me, I'm literally, you guys, my head is over this hot pot of water with eucalyptus oil, and she's doing Reiki, and she's like, "You're not speaking your truth." And I had to go through like every person in my life and be like, what am I not being honest
Mhm.
about? How am I, you get into the, even as somebody who is a Reiki master, I still am a
I'm
student,
always a
always,
student in her
always,
school,
always.
girl.
Let me tell you a secret. Reiki master really just means you signed up to be a student.
Forever. You're going to have to master all that.
A committed student.
For real.
Yeah. So those physical ailments can be anything, any sickness, any cold, any um, literally like strap strap throat, any sort of, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big
So
one. And constantly having problems in your throat. If you're always sick and it's always your throat, or your throat's always dry, like things like that, there's a sign that there's something going on. And just to piggyback earlier
mm,
about one other thing I was going to say when you were saying that, mine is, and how I know I'm out of alignment with my throat, is when I get in that habit of constantly breaking promises to myself or to others and overcommitting. Like that, I'm like, ooh,
overcommitting.
girl,
Mm.
what are you not speaking? That you're, honey, you don't have to run. It's okay. Um, but I keep hearing like a little, sorry.
I saw
Yeah.
that shadow.
He's available for entertainment Monday through Friday, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, then I need to zoom out and I need to say in those moments, okay, well, what in me am I not being authentic in? Because to me, my throat is all about my authenticity, especially to myself.
First with self, always
Hmm.
with self, always, always,
Hmm.
always. Yeah.
And this is
hmm
what I,
And sometimes
nope, go, go, go.
sometimes if you're having a lot of problem with connecting with yourself, it will literally reflect. Your throat chakra issues will reflect from another person.
That
So if you're running into somebody who's being incredibly rude, chances are at some point the day of or the day yesterday, you were rude too. Like it just happens.
100%. Your shadows, if
Yeah.
you refuse to see them in yourself, your shadows become people you can't avoid. It's the people you can't avoid. Walmart, the gas station, you're going to get the rudest clerks. You're going to, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
that's another way too, is zoom out and see what kind of people am I attracting? Am I on Sesame
hmm
Street
Yeah.
or am I on Highway to Hell? I'm just saying. Okay. I wrote this down earlier and I read it and I said, oh, you got to say that. So one thing to explain chakras, and hopefully it makes sense. Sometimes I write stuff and then I say it out loud and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have said it out loud. But it says how chakras affect you. Think of a chakra as like a little train, right? As a little train that transports energy throughout the body. And so each little area has a little train station and it parks here and it goes here and they all flow and they're all on a track, right? Which is your spine. And so they just transport energy throughout the body. But what's really cool about them is that they also, along the way, right? Those little trains are responsible for governing the energy to the organs, not even just the organs. They also affect the area of everything that's around that train station, right? So they affect the area of all the health in your body. When one train gets off track, it can't reach its destination. So the throat chakra and all the other chakras, they really connect you to many things. So just as she said, the first chakra, right? Or the first of the chakra, or the fifth chakra, I should say, the fifth, sixth, and seventh chakra are all about growth and spirit. And then, like she said, what'd you call this again? The gateway.
What
The
do I call it?
gateway.
The gateway.
And then my teacher calls the heart the bridge. So you've got the gateway to the upper, right? To the spirit, to the growth. And then the lower are all about our physical life and our emotions. And so the chakra is all about growth and transformation. And yeah. Another thing with throat chakra is it's related to your creativity. And people believe that it holds the power for you to be able to physically manifest things. My friend Angie, that comes on here all the time, she talks about that your word is your wand. And it's like a magical wand, and whatever you say is what it will create, right? So that's another thing to think of when you talk about your throat chakra is, what am I speaking life to? What am I wanting to create today?
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, words are spells. And that's a really, really easy way to evaluate where your throat chakra is today. It changes a
Yeah,
lot. And all of this work is just to have self-awareness so that you can choose who you want to
yeah,
be. Yeah, and that is a beautiful way to self-evaluate in a really kind way of knowing, um, of witnessing with yourself of what you are speaking
yeah,
out loud into yourself.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
another thing to say to this, I wrote this down earlier too, and I think it kind of wraps it up. And then we're going to say a mantra with you and tell you a couple of things you can do if you're experiencing any of the things we talked about. So when you look at the chakras, right, and the shadows, what we're doing is we're looking at the absence of a quality, not the absence of a person, not the absence of things you've done wrong, not anything bad. We're just looking at where is the absence of this quality. Um, and so that is, kind of gotten a bad rap because it's labeled a shadow, but it's really of what is absent in my life? What is the opposite of this that's absent in my life? And the shadows are really looking at those absent parts of your vision, of your thoughts, of what you're willing to bring in. And chakra and shadow work are for people who are really ready. And I love this quote, who are really ready to dissolve separation from their physical world, into this good girl, physical world, emotional world, and spiritual world. It's about finding, what am I holding on to that's keeping me separated from being connected to all those things. Think of who you would be if you physically, emotionally, and spiritually were aligned. That's huge. So I know we've given you a lot of information, and as you can see, we've been needing to work together for a while because I think we could have made this class a week. But what we're right.
It's true.
So BL, what I'm going to ask you to do now, baby, is tell them what are some little ways that you personally do. I'm so glad you needed this. I'm glad you're here. So what are some little ways you can help work with their throat chakra now? And then at the end, we are going to give you a special treat where um, the lovely BL has created a mantra just for you.
Is it is it the first part too that I wrote down? Like we Yes, okay. So some ways that, just making sure we're on
We
the same
are.
page.
Always.
Always. So ways that I love, and I think I mentioned this too, is ways that you can really just get even in tune with the energy of, like, get in tune, sorry, tone, same thing. To get in tune with the energy of your throat chakra is literally to hear yourself talk
Mm-hmm.
out loud. So if you don't talk to yourself already out loud, go ahead and start. I
Cars are
am
perfect.
totally
Yeah.
supporting you to do that.
I
Oh,
always talk
yes,
in the car.
yes. In practice, yes, in practice, if you're having road rage, examine that. Don't, I mean, if you need to, examine after is the first step. And then when you get past that, then you'll examine it before, and then you'll get to a point where you're like, "Oh my God." And it will take a couple times. But hearing and feeling the vibration of your voice is so healing in literally getting to know who you are. I mean, even hearing your voice, I don't even want to watch this work if again to hear what my voice sounds like recording, because I am comfortable right here of hearing who I am and hearing my voice talking like this. I'm good. Actually, and do you guys want to hear something funny?
Always.
I I like I love talking. I love singing alone. I cannot sing to another
Oh,
person. I did choir. I tried out for American fucking
you did
Idol. I cannot though. It was terrible. But I get so shy, and so for me, singing is a huge healing modality that with my partner, I have actually been able to, this is so silly, but sing along to a song in the car. Even though it's like you can barely hear me, like I'm getting there. That part of my throat chakra, there's debris that I'm constantly working on. And so for me, that healing, literally, so the point of all of this is to work on your throat chakra, get familiar with your vibration of your vocal
it.
cords,
Hmm.
because then you will have that kind of plant seeds of other things about yourself too, energetically, physically, spiritually, mentally. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is that's my take on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that this may get some eye rolls, but my car and my shower are my two altars in many ways, right? I let so much shit out in the shower. There are days that require a sing off, and you're going to hear every cast of glee come out of my mouth, right? I'm going to do a low, a high. I don't care. It's my shower, it's my sanctuary. So
Yes.
sometimes I have to get it out of there. Sometimes I have to cry. Sometimes I have to pray. And a lot of times my prayer is me speaking my truth, is me saying, God, I need your help in this. I need the shadows coming out. And I say the shadow, help me find the answer to that today. Bring somebody in my path that's going to show me what to do. So there are times that I have to express myself like that. Then there are times that I'm not going to say where I park, but I get in my car and I know no one can hear me. And I let myself scream because there is a releasing in screaming. When are we ever allowed to scream? We're not. When someone hears a scream, they run to save you. I mean, something's tremendously wrong, but all of us have screams that we've needed to get out for years that we don't allow ourselves to get out. And there is a freeing that happens when you let yourself scream. And another thing is, I've heard several coaches claim this. So I don't know whose it is originally, but it's brilliant. Is to have two journals. Have one journal that's a FU journal or the bitch diaries or whatever you want to call it. And then one that's your frou positive stuff. But in the journal, that is the parts of you that want to go off, that want to cuss, that want to say those things. I don't think you should ever run from that. Sometimes you need to run into it for a moment. There's comfort in allowing yourself to
Sit
go
with
there.
it.
Yes. Just don't stay there. But get the journal out and say the days that because you're feeling it, so it's already in there. But when you suppress it, you suppress the emotion, which is going to leave you having to call one of us to do chakra work. I mean, I ain't saving our pocketbooks, but I'm going to save your soul. So get your journal and you can do the FU stuff, right? Where today I just wanted to just tell my boss that, I mean, it's there. It's already there. So write it out and rip it out. You don't leave anything in the effing journal though. You burn it, you release it. It's not for anyone else. Think of that too.
I love flashing it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something now I can't do it. There's something authentic about
There you go.
holding what's yours and what you're feeling and getting it out, but not having to call someone and vent the negative stuff and then damper their energy. When you do it in a book or something like that, it's safe, but then no one else is being judged by what you just said. Only the paper sees that. Well, the second you call Sally Walker, I don't know why I always pick the names out, but the second you call that person and you vent about your boss, they now see your boss different, right? But your book doesn't do that. And there's no guilt in the book.
Yeah, no guilt.
So that's some things we would recommend. What do you guys do in the comments? What do you guys do with your throat chakra? Another good one is listening to on YouTube binaural beats, putting them in your earbuds in and listening to throat chakra ones. Or what we're going to do in a minute, you can do mantras. You can say certain words that have a vibration that also sends energy, gets debris moving out of the way. You can put some essential oils on there. You can listen to a guided meditation about throat chakra, right? Okay, so I know we could go all night, and I could tell you're getting tired. What is your mantra for your throat?
So I was thinking about this, and it came to me like really quick, and I love when spirit says go. So if y'all want to write this down, are you ready? It's okay, this is a mantra. Repeat it, write it down. Personally, I love writing.
How about you say it
So,
once? I'll say it with you, and we'll have them say it too. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. When I speak clearly, I feel clearly.
When I speak clearly.
When I feel
Okay. Hold on, we go. I said that wrong.
Okay, we're starting over.
Okay, go. How about that? We'll repeat it after you. I like that better. Okay.
My camera is backwards, so whatever. If you can all see me, whatever. Okay. When I speak clearly, I feel clearly.
When I speak clearly, I feel clearly.
When I feel clearly, I know clearly.
When I feel clearly, I know clearly.
When I know clearly, I do clearly.
When I know clearly, I do clearly.
And when I'm clear to the universe clears my path.
And when I'm clear to the universe clears my path. Let's do it again.
Yes. When I speak clearly, I feel clearly.
When I speak clearly, I feel clearly.
When I feel clearly, I know clearly.
When I feel clearly, I know clearly.
When I know clearly, I do clearly.
When I know clearly, I do clearly.
And when I'm clear to the universe clears my path.
When I'm clear to the universe clears my path.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a word that you like to say that raises the vibration in your throat?
Honestly, it's a singing scream of just ah.
It's really.
Like if you're going to the doctor's office and they're checking your throat, that ah sound that literally is raising the back of your throat, that is that sound.
So I know that y'all might be in the library or something, probably not this late, but I want you to just, for a moment, even if you have to whisper it, let's all do that together. Okay, because collectively, we're clearing out shit together. This is really powerful. So let's do it. You ready? You start all on. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
Again. That's
What's
good.
that?
Ah.
Put your hand right here when you do it. Do you feel how it resonates in your chest as
Yeah,
well? It's physically, it's connecting everywhere. You can feel it up here. It's connecting all
I
those
love
chakras
that. I
together.
love that. So that if you did that, even you set your timer and do that for 5 minutes, I already feel it.
Hmm.
That was beautiful. Lotus said I used to sing when I was mad. I would curse and stuff in the song. That's beautiful. Yeah, because you could get it out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, anyways, I just thank you for doing that. That felt so good. I want to do one more. I gotta do one more. You want to do
Do it.
everything.
Do it. Yeah,
Okay.
do it.
You can't leave me hanging though. Okay. Uh,
Ah.
ooh.
Yes.
So I just want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to invest in yourself tonight. You could have done anything with this last hour, but you chose to dive into you to seek to understand you a little more and to find different ways and tools to just make you feel more connected. So we hope that you have found a few golden nuggets tonight. We know you did. And we can't wait to hear what this does for your throat. So one thing I do want to say, because I can't help it, I can steal it all night. Tomorrow night, we're going to come back and we're going to dive into learning, because this is some more magical yumminess about Miss Brenna. She's just a wealth of knowledge. Um, is we're going to learn about tomorrow's 11/11. Okay. And so there's so much. Oh, thank you, honey. There's so much that comes with 11/11 and the portals that are opening. And so, yes, you guys hear these numbers, you hear these things, but we're going to explain tomorrow of some beautiful things that you could be doing to bring in and open, bring in and further open the portal, right? But to also honor your truth and your authenticity, because this is the perfect time to do so. So I couldn't think of a more perfect guest to dive in and talk about that in the way you explain the moons. It's like I'm sitting there with popcorn, just ready to dive in the way you explain. So I'm excited.
Cool.
So,
Cool. Awesome. It'll be
yes,
great.
it will. So I say all that to say this is the perfect time to really work on your throat chakra during this portal, especially, and to really awaken what is authenticity to you, what is your own truth. And once again, what are you saying yes to that you should be saying no to? And what, yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
So thank you for watching.
Love it.
Thank you for staying up past your bedtime. Love you,
Yes.
ladies. Have a fantastic night. Ah.
Bye, everyone. Bye.